Welcome back, sports fans. This is a project I've been wanting to do for a really long time. Build a Recce DMR. What exactly is that, you might ask? Concept. The concept being a semi-automatic precision platform that is a lighter, shorter, more compact form factor, but still capable of long-range precision accuracy. Now, the concept of a Recce rifle and the concept of a DMR are not new concepts. However, they're kind of juxtaposed in that the DMR is typically a larger caliber, say something like a 6.5 Creedmoor or 308, and a longer, larger platform, 20-inch barrel, precision semi-automatic rifle. They usually feature longer barrels, heavier weight and profile overall, heavier calibers, and bigger optics. Now, the Recce concept is based on a lightweight patrol-style rifle capable of being carried long distances for reconnoitering, recon. And for a rifle like that, you're generally looking at something like the AR-15 platform with a shorter barrel in 5.56 or 223. Now, the 5.56 223 is kind of an anemic caliber when it comes to long-range accuracy. That doesn't mean you can't make hits at long range with it. It's just not the best, most effective caliber for it. So we'll get to this in a second, but my concept here of use: compact form factor, long range capable, precision semi-automatic. A rifle like this is useful in hunting scenarios, reconnoitering scenarios, and long range precision engagement, and even CQB. In some instances, you could use it in CQB. Where it differs from a large frame DMR is shorter barrel. I use the 16-inch Shaw barrel, which I will cover in a second. A low power variable optic, the 1 to 8 being kind of a standard-ish range, 1 to 8 or 1 to 6. I'm not in love with this style of optics, but this is what I have on hand right now for this particular rifle, so I'm gonna go ahead and go with it. I prefer 2 to 10, which is what we're gonna upgrade to in the future. 2 to 10, 3 to 15. To me, that is more geared towards being a not just Recce rifle capable of some CQB if necessary, but is also more capable of longer ranges and more precision and more accuracy at those distances. All right, so where the fusion comes from Recce to DMR though is really in how the rifle was built and how I built this rifle. And I'm gonna start with the receivers. Cross machine and tool. If you're not using cross machine and tool, billet receivers, I highly recommend you check them out. Cross Machine and Tool makes some of the best. They're here in Lexington, Tennessee. They make some of the best billet receivers with the most precise tolerances in the game. They are extremely rugged, 70-75 aluminum. They're lightweight, but they're also very sturdy. They're sturdier than the typical AR-15 receivers. That sturdier platform is going to be the first step in the foundation of an accurate rifle. So versus being just a regular old AR-15 rack grade rifle, you start with a solid, more structurally rugged, and more precise foundation to build from. All right, the second link in the chain of an accurate DMR style rifle will be your trigger, your bolt, high quality bolt, and your barrel. The barrel for this build, I chose a 16-inch H-bar profile Shaw custom barrels, 6mm arc, and 1 and 7.5-inch twist. Now, if you're not familiar with Shaw custom barrels, they make an excellent barrel. Stainless steel, 416 stainless, really well machined, very precise. I've used them before in the past for builds for customers and other rifles, and I've had great success with them. For the buttstock, I went with the UBR. The UBR is my preferred buttstock in most scenarios. I don't typically enjoy a telescoping buttstock. I don't actually find them that useful because of their kind of loose tolerances and clunky nature, and they tend to grab the beard and that kind of stuff. So they're not exactly the most stable and sturdy platform for the back end of your rifle for shooting from. The UBR, however, is a good mix between that fixed stock and a collapsible. You have all the adjustability of a collapsible, but you have a fixed cheek position, which I really, really like. It's a little bit sturdier, a little bit heftier, and it makes the rifle just a little bit denser or heavier in a good way overall. Better balance. With the H-bar profile barrel and the UBR stock on the back end and the billet receiver in the middle, I actually have a very balanced rifle. It's a little on the heavier side of what you might see for a typical AR-15, but balanced well, it feels great. This one actually carries really well. I went up and down some mountains with it yesterday just carrying it around, and it is very lightweight. It's lighter weight than any of my other DMR style rifles, like my 20-inch 6-ARC and my 6.5 Creedmoor. So it's got that going for it. Definitely lighter weight. But if you nail down your components between good receiver, good trigger, good barrel, and a good caliber, it makes all the difference in turning a regular old Recce rifle into an actual DMR style rifle. Which brings me to the next point. Let's talk calibers. You can make a DMR rifle and a Recce rifle, both, out of a 5.56 or 223, but it's an anemic caliber with a range of about 500 yards or 500 meters for accurate precision engagement. You can shoot further than that with it. I know you can. I know that there's 1,000-yard capable 223s out there. It's not the best cartridge for it. It's not the most optimal cartridge for it. It doesn't really push the rifle into that DMR, semi-automatic, designated marksman style or special purpose style rifle for accuracy and precision at longer ranges. My personal preference is a 6mm arc, hands down. There's almost nothing that comes close to it. 6 max if you're a glutton for punishment and you don't like ammo. But the 6mm projectile, I think, has the best all-around useful characteristics for a small frame DMR. Now, if you're talking the big frame DMR, 6.5 Creedmoor, 308, cannot go wrong. Other options you might look at are the 6.5 Grendel, also a great option. Kind of anemic in the velocity category. It doesn't really make full use of that 6.5mm projectile, which is an extremely ballistically efficient projectile. It just needs a little more gas than what you can get out of a small frame DMR in the Grendel, but it's still a great cartridge, say 700 or 800 yards. If you're specifically looking for something in your DMR in the 22 caliber, I would look at the 22 ARC or the 224 Valkyrie. Both of them have some really good characteristics that take a smaller package, the 22 caliber, and make it a true long range caliber. Personally, 6 ARC. I go with that one all day long. I've tested it in rifles like this with 16, 18, 20, and 22-inch barrels all the way out to 1,000 yards and beyond. I haven't seen anything in the caliber that makes me second guess it as my preference for this type of rifle. All right, so let's talk optics. For your Recce rifles, generally a low power variable optic like this US Optics 1-8 is typical. Personally, I prefer, again, the 2-10s or 3-15s. They give you a little bit more precision and a little bit longer ranges. This one will be getting an upgrade eventually, but for now, the 1-8 is what we're going with, and it makes this package extremely maneuverable, lightweight, and overall comfortable to carry and comfortable to use. When you drop it down to 1 power and you switch your little light on over here, you've got a really great CQB style gun. And the 16-inch barrel, so the smaller form factor, gives you a little bit more maneuverability in tight spaces and stuff like that. Now, the foundation of accurizing a rifle like this, other than the components, choosing quality components, and there's a lot of them out there you could go through. There's a lot of good barrel makers, a lot of good receiver makers, and there's a lot of great triggers. I use the CMC triggers, flat bow. This one's a 2.5 pound. That's kind of my preferred for this type of rifle. But something you can do to really help accurize the receiver on a rifle is using a receiver truing tool like this from Excalibur. All right, I'll cut some video in here. Basically, you put a lapping compound on this here, you slide it into the receiver, and you lap that front edge of the receiver where the barrel nut goes onto the actual barrel. We'll talk about the handguard and barrel nut in just a second. But if you lap that receiver face true, you're gonna get a much better and more consistent seat for your barrel. And I do this now on all my rifles, whether they're Recce rifles, fighting carbines, or DMRs or SPRs or whatever. I do this with all of them. The lapping compound, you can go to the auto parts store locally and find just about everything you need for this, like your mag and wheel polishes and your aluminum polishes. They take a little bit longer, but you can find an abrasive enough polish to put on the edge of this thing, lap the front face of that receiver lug, and off you go. So a few quick turns in your drill and you've got the front of your receiver lug nice and lapped. That brings me to the last point. The connection of your barrel to your actual receiver. There's a lot of great handguards out there. Geisley, companies like that make some really good handguards with some really good barrel nuts on them. Personally, my personal preference, I love PRA handguards. I love the old school style stuff like that, or the carbon fiber stuff, but my personal preference is for the White Oaks Armory basic handguard. They have this gigantic 3-inch steel barrel nut that mates that barrel to the receiver rock solid, and they're trued out and they're great. I mean, they're fantastic. They have really simple handguards. They're not complex, but you can mount anything you need on them, whatever you'd want for your characteristics. They're very easy to true up and mount to your receiver. They don't have any wings or lugs on them, so you just gotta eyeball it. The things you can do is you can take one of these, and as you're mounting your handguard to the receiver, clamp one of these, an empty one, across the bridge there and clamp it, and that trues everything centered and straight, and then you just tighten down your bolts. Life is good. You're trued up, straight, and square all the way. All right, so I've gone out to the range with this thing already. I'll cut some video in here. Wind is really gnarly today out at the range. I mean, we're talking like 30, 40 mile an hour gusts in some places. So I'm just gonna put some rough zero down at 50 yards and do some function testing with the 108 Hornady ELD match factory stuff, just to see what we can get on paper at 50 yards. All right, here we go. Okay, all right, we're on paper at least. There we go. Center punch. All right, I'll take you down range real quick. All right, so it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're pretty much roughed in at 50. I'm gonna drop it down that ½ inch, and I think we'll call it. We'll shoot some groups from there. We're not gonna get a whole lot of great data today as far as groups because of the wind, but not too shabby. A little bit of flyer. So out at the range, I used both 108 grain ELDM factory load from Hornady to kind of rough zero it in and get on paper and see what we got going on. I'll post some data here. Pretty decent results to begin with so far as velocity. The accuracy with the Hornady has not been great. I have never actually experienced great accuracy with any Hornady factory loaded ammunition over broad swaths of testing, meaning that I've always found some inconsistency in the Hornady ammo so far as accuracy, velocities, flyers, that kind of thing. It's kind of normal to be inconsistent with Hornady. When it's working really good, it works great. When it's not working, it ain't working at all. Well, the 108s, I got about similar results to what I expected, pretty decent velocities. They make a great varmint round, they make a great plinking or, shooting, goofing off round. 107s, I'll show you. One test I did do that gave me the best result, and I am not surprised. My 107s right here. That's why I always shoot Sierra. Sierra Match Kings, the 107s, have been, in my experience, the best performing bullets in the 6mm arc across a broad range of pressures and velocities. Seconded only by Burgers. Burgers also really consistent and really accurate. Now, the wind was kicking like a chicken while I was out there, blowing me all over the place, so I didn't get a whole lot of group testing. I just laid down a few things, and then I started testing some velocities to see what I was getting in my hand loads and the factory stuff compared to what I was getting in the previous version of this, which was my hunting DMR, which was a 16-inch Faxon barrel, which I pulled out of here, put it on a new cross machining tool lower receiver. It already had the upper receiver. That was a pretty accurate rifle, but this one seems to be right off the bat, maybe a little bit more accurate. Time will tell once it breaks in, but I like what I'm seeing so far. The velocities are really comparable. Overall, with a rifle like this, you can pretty much do everything you might need to do in a DMR or a Recce rifle right here. Out to reasonable distances. I would say 800 to 1,000 is the longer end of its range, just based on the velocity data I've gathered so far, which I'll post up here on the screen. I'm keeping a bullet supersonic out of this rifle right now, and we're talking this thing only has maybe 25 rounds to it so far, probably 25 rounds to it, which I expect a little bit of gain in accuracy and velocity as that round count gets a little higher and the barrel gets broke in. But right now, out of the 2 loads I tested, I can keep a bullet supersonic past 900 yards out of a very light and rugged and short overall form factor rifle. So comparing it to my 6.5 Creedmoor DMR, this thing, there's about a 2-inch difference in the length, and there's about, maybe 1.5 pounds difference in the weight. So you don't need a gigantic, heavy caliber to make an effective long-range DMR Recce rifle with a better caliber like the 6mm arc. Don't get me wrong, I like the heavy calibers. I like the heavy DMRs. They're typically just not as reliable, and the 6.5 Creedmoor, especially being a much superior cartridge to the 6 arc, has some finicky problems with pressure and functionality in the DMRs. It's not the most reliable. The 6 arc so far, in this rifle, I have not had a single stoppage or malfunction of any kind. I'm only a few rounds into it, we'll see, time will tell. Brass ejection, all that stuff looked great. My other 6mm that I have, which I do have a couple of them or a few of them, or more than I probably should at this point, they're not, I haven't had any reliability problems with them. I haven't had any bolt malfunctions, I haven't had any extractor malfunctions, I haven't had any breakages, I haven't had any real problems with anything, including magazines. So overall, if you're looking for a DMR style Recce build, I would recommend something like this. Maybe a little bit better optic on it than what I have. This is kind of a CQB style low power variable optic. So I'm gonna upgrade that, but I am in love with this package so far. I like the weight of it, like the size of it. I'm gonna try it for hunting this year, do some coyote hunting, that kind of thing. And when deer season rolls around, I'll probably take it out to the woods just to kick some rounds down range and see what we get out of it. I had great luck with my other hunting 16-inch. This one's got a little bit better barrel on it. Probably gonna be a little more accurate, a little heftier. So I'm expecting a little bit of an accuracy and precision gain there. Once I get a chance to get this thing to the range and get 100 or 200 rounds through it and actually start going through some real accuracy and velocity testing, maybe tweaking some loads for it, I will post a video on that in the near future as this thing comes to life in my armory. Thank you for joining me again. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions about DMRs versus Recce, or you just want to get into the conversation and special purpose rifles, it's kind of a broad category of rifles, but I think you can do a lot with it if you're looking for that semi-automatic precision platform. Call it whatever you want. Thank you for joining me again. Y'all have a blessed day and get out and shoot something.